NBA fans usually don't agree on a lot of things, but one thing that everyone can agree on is that last season's playoff matchup between the Nuggets and the Jazz was one of the most intense matchups ever. Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray were both breaking records left and right, and the series got even more intense when the Nuggets forced the Game 7. As we all know, Denver ended up winning that game by 1 point, and the historic run put on by Donovan Mitchell was over. Well, no worries for all the Jazz fans though, because this year they come back with vengeance. Not only are they leading the Western Conference, but they're also leading the whole NBA in win-loss ratio and have won 9 out of their 10 games. So exactly how good are the Utah Jazz and how far will they go in the playoffs? Well, let's see. First, let's start off with how the team is right now and what are the reasons for their performance. Just putting it out there, the way they're playing is not a fluke. The Jazz are leading the NBA in point differentials and ranked number 2 overall in net rating. They're the only team in the NBA that currently sits top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. What this means is that both their offense and their defense is among the top 15% of the teams in the whole league, and that's pretty impressive. Being only solid in one of those two aspects leaves you with a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who have one of the best offenses with absolutely no defense. Aside from that, the shooters on Jazz have started the season on fire and the whole team is shooting over 40% from 3 with over 40 attempts per game. That efficiency is something you don't see that often and it explains why the Jazz have been able to blow out teams almost regularly. Something else that's really cool about this team is the depth they have in their bench. In a way, you could say that they have 7 or 8 starters. Also, they have more than a solid coach in Quinn Snyder. Okay, now that we have an overall idea of how well this team is performing as a group, let's move on to how the players are doing individually. I know we can all agree on the fact that Donovan Mitchell is the face of this franchise, and one of the reasons why they're doing so well is because of him. He's averaging almost 24 points and 5 assists per game, while shooting around 41% from 3 while attempting 8 threes per night, and that's more than great for any point guard. He's an incredible player who continues to make strides with his offense, particularly with his passing, efficiency, and 3-point shot. But like everyone else, he has things to improve on. And for Mitchell, that thing is his defense. I'm not going to get too statistical, but the overall idea is that his defense rating has been dropping every year since his rookie season, and right now he's having one of his worst seasons defensively. Does he need to be a good defender for this Jazz team to be a contender? No, because there's more than enough help defense. Talking about defense, the next star on this team is Rudy Gobert, who's a front runner for the Defensive Player of the Year. I'd say Gobert took Shaq's trolling personally because he's been having a monster season so far. Even though he's not exactly the most versatile offensive player, Gobert is still a huge factor in the success that this team has. He single-handedly provides a high defensive baseline, which allows his team to place maximum shooting and playmaking around him, without putting the team's defense at risk. In simpler words, when Gobert is on the floor, the rest of the team could mainly focus on their offense and getting deeper into the other player's half, without worrying about their own defense as much. Alongside that, Gobert's pick and roll is a really good offensive weapon as well. Obviously, most of us already knew about these two guys and their abilities. But the interesting part is that they aren't the only players that are making this Jazz team so elite. Another person who's been really vital for this team is Mike Conley. In his 13th season in the league, Mike Conley is the person who's quietly orchestrating this whole Jazz team. He's averaging just below 17 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. And while his per game numbers aren't eye-popping, he's still bringing a huge amount of value to this team. Aside from shooting over 45% from 3, Conley is a veteran who's selfless, experienced, and a leader, which this young team could benefit from as they move on to the postseason. He also has been the best plus-minus box scorer in the whole NBA, which also says tons about what he's bringing to the table. Bojan Bogdanovic is also another solid player who can come on the court and provide good basketball almost every night. He's averaging around 16 points and is shooting really well from the 3. That's something that all the players on this team seem to have in common. Another Jazz player which I need to mention is Jordan Clarkson, who's been having a career year. His transformation into the Utah system has been amazing to watch. Clarkson's been making improvements prior to coming to this team, but the organization and Quinn Snyder pretty much completed it. He's also the odds-on favorite to win the 6th Man of the Year award this year. Alright, I'm pretty sure I already hyped him up enough, so let's get a deeper look. He's putting up almost 18 points per game plus close to 5 rebounds, and both of those stats are absolutely phenomenal considering how he's playing only 25 minutes per night. Clarkson's also really fun to watch, which I know doesn't exactly make him a better player, but I had to mention it anyways. There's also a couple of other players such as Joe Ingles who are putting up decent numbers, but I won't get into details with them because their impact isn't as big as the guys that I have already talked about. Okay, so now it's time for the big question, and that is how far will the Jazz go in the playoffs? Well, unlike favorite teams such as the Lakers or the Clippers, the Jazz don't have multiple MVP candidates and they only have one player that is considered a superstar. Yeah, I know that Rudy Gobert's getting paid more than $200 million, but he hasn't exactly reached that level yet. Honestly, none of this matters though, because the Jazz have built the otherwise best possible NBA team possible. How far the Jazz go in the postseason will depend primarily on their ability to process the challenges in front of them. Last year, they focused a lot on Donovan Mitchell, and we can't really say that there was anyone else who did much for the team in the first round. For them to have a chance this year, they have to play like the Heat team we saw last year, a team where everyone helped in one way or another. Right now, Utah is doing exactly that. If the Jazz are going to push through the playoffs and somehow become a contender in a loaded Eastern Conference, they have to have a defense that's less vulnerable to taller wings like Kawhi and guards who can shoot off the dribble like Jamal Murray and big point guards like Nikola Jokic. But let's imagine their defense stayed the same and nothing else changes. How far will they go then? Well, I personally see them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and don't feel like a finals appearance is too far-fetched. In the first round, they're likely to verse either Golden State or the Trailblazers. And in either series, I see Utah as the clear winner. But from the second round on, there isn't really anything that's certain because they're probably verse either the Lakers or the Clippers, and anything can happen in those games. If they do reach the conference finals though, then the chances of them winning it all is actually going to be really high. Well, that's pretty much it. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, and if you got a minute, check out one of these videos on the screen right now, which I'm sure you'll like. Alright then, I'll see you in the next video.